Hi, this is Jen Rubin.
And Norma Eisen.
And
We're
Kim
here
Wehle.
with the Contrarian, and we have our guest, Kim Wehle, who is an authority on many things, including pardons. And today was a day of many pardons. Kim, talk to us. We had two sets of pardons from the outgoing president and the incoming president. Talk to us a little bit about Biden's pardons and then Trump's pardons.
Well, Biden pardoned preemptively the January 6th committee members, their staff, as well as the Capitol police officers and DC police officers that were involved in the congressional investigation and hearings. He also pardoned Anthony Fauci and Mark Milley. And he, in a separate set of pardons, pardoned 5 additional members of his family, his 3 siblings, and 2 of their spouses. And that second set of pardons, I think, is probably more controversial and unexpected than the first set.
Right. On the first set, can you figure out why he chose to pardon 3 witnesses and not a lot of other witnesses, many of whom had been targeted by Kash Patel?
No, it's really difficult to parse why that was the case. And I think that for me, that's one of the problems, frankly, with the family pardons is that there
Yes.
are so many witnesses, including people that maybe aren't famous, don't have deep pockets to pay for lawyers, or can't necessarily GoFundMe and get that kind of support that could have been pivotal in connection with some of these investigations, not just around the congressional committee, but also the 2 Jack Smith prosecutions. And then let's not forget too, Jen, the folks in Manhattan, both in connection with the civil case and Judge Erdogan and Judge Merchan and the 34-count criminal conviction. And then we haven't even gotten to Georgia, but the witnesses, the prosecutors, the judge, the family members of the judge, the grand jurors, the jurors, the court clerk, all those folks. It doesn't need to be that there are actually facts that give rise to crimes to start an investigation and make it very, very difficult for people's lives and pocketbooks.
Absolutely. Get us started on the Trump pardons. And remember, I think it was just a few days ago that his DOJ nominee, Pam Bondi, said that if you've attacked a police officer, that would not be an appropriate pardon. And she also said that she would stand up to a president if he tried to order the Justice Department around. What did he do with those 2 edicts or those 2 statements of principle today in the pardons?
Well, it doesn't look like she was particularly read in on what his plans are, but she also refused to say that she would necessarily push back on an unconstitutional order. She waffled on whether birthright citizenship is in the Constitution. And just for your listeners, it is crystal clear. That is not ambiguous. I don't even know what kind of argument they're going to concoct in that regard. I think they obviously, Donald Trump, some people might know, issued an executive order in that regard, setting up a legal battle, hoping it will go to the Supreme Court. But what these pardons represented was an undermining of the rule of law. The Department of Justice guidelines for issuing pardons, which are not binding, look to whether the person pardoned will be violent. And I think that is really what you have to underscore as the difference between the Biden pardons around January 6th and the Trump pardons around January 6th. One set of folks are now emboldened to commit violent crimes around elections at the behest of the dear ruler, whereas, and in addition, people who participated in the rule of law being upheld in that regard are now potential targets for retribution by those folks who really felt like now the Justice Department did a disservice to them and actually was corrupt and was against them.
Kim, uh, how do you understand the fact that some of the insurrectionists, like Stuart Rhodes, the ringleader of the Oath Keepers, got a commutation, and there was a list of them. But Enrique Tarrio, the head of the Proud Boys, appears to have been included in the full pardon category. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, because so people might understand a commutation means you get out of jail. So if in terms of people that are worried about some kind of backlash, violent backlash. Now these people feel vindicated. And just to be clear, there was a survey done over the summer. Most Americans, Republicans and Democrats, did not want to see these pardons because they were worried about greenlighting political violence. So that commutation you get out of jail, a pardon doesn't wipe out your record. That requires an exoneration from a judge, but it does give you access to firearms. It gives you access to getting on a plane and going to a foreign country, whereas there could be some restraints absent a pardon. It will restore rights to vote in certain states where if you have a felony conviction, you cannot. So I'd have to go back and look at the details of each of these people, but I think it is interesting. There was some scrutiny made. It wasn't just this blanket pardon.
If in fact it's accurate that the leader of the Proud Boys received a pardon with the additional privileges that brings, whereas the leader of the Oath Keepers did not, does that suggest favoritism, some reason that Donald Trump, who said to them, stand back and stand by, that the Proud Boys leader would be in a different category?
Well, it's interesting you're raising this because one of the things I had thought could be possible today was that Donald Trump would give pardons to people that in this moment are still adhering to the big lie, are still proud of that day, have no regrets, no remorse. And because there are others that are not. There are others that pleaded guilty and have publicly come out and said, listen, I messed up. I ruined my life and that of my family. So it sounds like, or at least obviously, he didn't make that decision with respect to the 1,500, but these leadership positions, maybe he is. And I think maybe he did. And I think that's consistent with his personality in terms of demanding, real abject loyalty to himself.
We're going to ask one more question,
yes,
and then we're going to let you go because
Right.
we know you parachuted in for us. Jen?
yes, you did. Kim is very popular being a pardon specialist. Kim, as we reach the end of our time with you, let me end with this. Donald Trump, perhaps in his own mind, makes some distinction between violent and nonviolent criminals. It was a very violent day. Under the law and under the sentences that many of them were given, were they considered to be nonviolent, or were these people considered to be part of a violent undertaking?
The last I looked, I think it was a small percentage that were actually engaged in violent crimes against police officers. When I say small, under 200 of the 1,500. Some of them
That's
were.
a lot. That's a lot.
I mean, that's still a lot.
200, that's 200 violent police attackers who are now being released and distributed all over the country by the law and order president.
Yeah, I mean, I stand corrected. Good point. And I would say that this is all supposed to be the law and order president, supporting the police. Those police officers are now targets as well. I mean, I just was leaving CNN, and Michael Fanone was on before me and said, his mother has been targeted, his yes. children have been targeted, his family's been targeted. So the idea that someone who did not, by the way, actually put his hand on the Bible today to be sworn in as president of the United States, but he took an oath to uphold the Constitution, the premise of which is that we're a nation of laws. And he's greenlighting serious violence in the name of undermining the peaceful transfer of power to wrest the presidency from the actual winner of the election, that was Joe Biden, and to take it for himself. I mean, the symbolism of it, it's something for a Netflix special. I would say a bad one that I would want to turn on for something happier, but here we are.
Can I ask you a one sentence bonus question, Kim?
Okay, yeah.
Is there any precedent in American history for extending this kind of clemency to violent insurrectionists so soon after committing their crimes for which they were convicted and imprisoned?
Well, no and no. I mean, the Justice Department requires 5 years after the end of your sentence. And of course, presidents can bypass that. But this really, I guess, falls within the definition of what some people call amnesty. which is a mass pardon, but it's done traditionally back to the days of, George Washington and the Whiskey Rebels. More modern president would be Jimmy Carter and the Vietnam War Dodge drafters. The idea about amnesty is to pull the country together in unity, is to move people forward beyond an ugly chapter of American history, like a war, for example, in a measure of solidarity and unity. This is doing the exact opposite. Not only is this tear the country apart so much because of January 6th, because of the big lie, and because of his reelection, frankly, notwithstanding all of that, but it also, as I indicated, it's a recipe for more violence. It's emboldening people to ignore federal law on the idea that if we commit violence at the behest of Donald Trump, we will be pardoned. I mean, how many people beyond the 170 or the 1,500 are going to see this? Domestic terrorists, which the FBI has said is the biggest, for years, is the biggest threat to American. I don't know if that's the case in this moment, but it certainly has been in recent years. How many people are going to feel, okay, I'm going to join this army. I'm going to join this militia. I'm going to now engage in the kind of January 6th violence that we all saw unfold on our televisions, because, you get rewarded for it. You become a hero. We just don't know, Norm. We're just going to have to kind of buckle our seatbelts and just watch and see how things unfold.
And I think one of the most important things is identifying it, speaking out. So, Kim, thanks so much for educating us
Kim.
and our audience. And I'm sure we'll see you soon. Thanks so
Great
much.
to be with you.